Hello and welcome to this episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy-Wilcox and today I'm going solo. This is the episode where we bring together the last 9 episodes and all of the things that our fantastic 3 guests have shared with us: wisdom, curiosity, purpose, leadership, all sorts of things. And you get to decide what's resonated with you most as I share some of the things that have resonated most for me. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this with you, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello everybody, welcome to this episode 30 of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today, and this is our episode that we do every 10th episode, which helps you to have a little recap where I try and pull out the things that resonated most with me over the past 9 episodes. And we have been absolutely treated to some real golden nuggets, real gems, real different takes on what leadership and game and mean to our 3 guests that we had over the 9 episodes. And just their leadership journeys, their stories, and everything that comes along with that. It's been a phenomenal 9 weeks. Can you believe it? It goes by just like that. And I find it amazing every time I come to recording the 10th episode when we're recapping what's been talked about. Now, for the first 3, we had the lovely Siobhan Mears from the Mears Collective. What a fascinating lady, and just leading her own business and just making a real difference in all the things she does in service to others, and in the charity piece that she talked about as well. If you haven't listened to those 3 episodes, please do go back and have a listen. And they're episodes 21, 22 and 23. Now, she talked a lot about mission. Of course, that connects massively with what I do with my clients in terms of helping them to connect with their purpose. And it was just a fabulous 3 episodes to connect with Siobhan. And we talked about all sorts of things, including how you balance professional and personal lives, because you can't really separate the two. They're always interconnected, and one can't help but influence the other. If we're super overloaded at work, that means we're getting home a bit later, or if we're working remotely, we're working a little bit later at our desks. So it's all interconnected, and if we're fed up, something's happened in our personal lives, that can influence how we show up at work as well. So yes, it's all interconnected, and getting that balance right is unique and different for each and every one of us, I would say. We talked about all sorts in there of mindfulness, looking after ourselves, the importance of that. And then, we went on in further episodes to talk about the team aspect and how that works. So again, looking after others, how do we bring that balance to our team, for example? And then one of my favorite things came up, which is about being the master of your own destiny. Now, it's something that I've talked about since starting my own business and wanting to be the one that is, I suppose, control always feels a bit strong for me. But in a way, if I'm brutally honest, being in control of the things that I do from day to day. So it's really interesting how actually when people are honest about the type of leader they want to be and who they want to show up as, control plays a big part of it. And a lot of my clients are surprised when that word kind of surfaces for them as we talk about things. And Siobhan talked about stepping into your own power. What an empowering sentence that is. You know, what is it that you truly want to be in your leadership? What are the important things that are going to, another thing she talked about, allow you to be in flow as a leader? How can you get into your flow if you're not already? What are the things that you can choose to change so that you can get into that flow more easily? Step into that power. Something she also talks about is that zone of genius, allowing yourself to operate in that optimal space for you so that you can show up as your best. So yes, so many things resonated with me when talking to Siobhan for those 3 episodes. And she also talked about intuition. Goodness me, there was so much in there. And we inevitably talked about the whole inclusivity piece. How are you being inclusive in your leadership? What does that mean to you? There's being inclusive in terms of including people in your team, but are you thinking more widely about how that affects your team, the different strengths that you bring into your team depending on who you choose to have in your team, for example? So there's so many different aspects of that inclusivity piece, and I'm sure we only just touched the surface. So there'll be lots of little prompts in those first 3 episodes that I touched on there with Siobhan that will help you reflect on what you want to bring to your leadership and how that works for you. So yeah, really exciting. So again, if you haven't listened to those, that's episodes 21 to 23 with Siobhan Mears from the Mears Collective, a fascinating take on leadership and her journey and how she's got to be the leader she is today. We then went on to Alex Rosborough, who's digital marketing guru, really fascinating guy. And we had, again, same as Siobhan, actually, great fun recording the episodes and great fun recording with Emma as well, as we always do. These are more a chat. They're certainly not a really strict, rigid interview in the podcasts. It's always about getting to know the real person and what they bring to the table in terms of their ideas and their differences on leadership. And I think it's fair to say that in episodes 24, 25 and 26 for Alex, he brought a real different take than we've had previously in our sort of leadership chats with our past guests. And just totally different. And just when I think that I've heard everything, someone else comes along and surprises me. And Alex was absolutely one of those guests. And we talked about all sorts of things. And again, going back to that diversity and inclusion piece, Alex and I talked about diversity in our views in leadership and what that means to us. That idea of how risk averse we might be. So how much risk are we taking in our leadership to innovate and do better and get better ways of working and better ways of communicating, better ways of building that team structure so that you're more successful. And sort of later in Alex's episodes, we touched on that idea of what does success mean to you? Now, Alex is an entrepreneur, a business entrepreneur, and on to his 3rd successful business. And he freely shares that he's never been employed. So traditional idea of being a corporate leader, if you like, doesn't come into his field. But the fantastic thing is he still understands that he's really leading his own business, his own life, and has choices to make in how he chooses to show up as a leader. And there's some fascinating stuff in there. And we talked all about how he and I might stand out from the crowd in our leadership. And I pass that on to you. What are you doing to stand out in your leadership? What's different to make sure you're not just one of the sheep following the crowd? It's interesting, isn't it, how it all sort of shows up differently for each and every one of us, and it means completely different things. That piece around the impact of COVID and how the working world has changed now. We talked about remote working, and I know that some of the teams that I work with are all remote. So we have to work that extra bit hard to make sure that we're creating that team spirit, because we can't connect in the kitchen while we're making a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in the mornings for a quick chat and a catch up. We can't just turn to our colleagues behind us and ask a question. I'm just working on this, and I was going to say this in the email. What do you think? Or could I say it any better? There's nobody there behind me to chat to, apart from Lilu the dog, who's just being very good sitting down next to me here. So, you have to work to, as Alex put it, strengthen those social bonds. And it takes a lot more time and effort to do that when you're remote. So it'd be lovely to hear from all of you as you listen to this episode. What are you doing to make sure that your remote teams are connecting? How are you leading them into that great space where they really feel that team spirit? We're working hard in the teams that I'm part of to make sure we do that with different chats, and making sure we're all dedicated to connecting every day. And instead of firing off an email, ringing somebody on Teams and saying, hello, how are you? Making that extra effort to get a face in front of you instead of that just couple of lines of text or a message. So there's so many different things, and that's just a scratch of the surface. Yeah, gosh. And then we got on to talking about the gifts we're giving our children, the education system, all sort of connected to how we're building the leaders of today. Absolutely fascinating stuff, and things that I didn't think I'd be talking about on the podcast. And this is fantastic for me. I feel like the kid in the sweet shop who's been given an endless amount of money to go and spend on all the sweets that I really love. That's made me think of rhubarb and custards and chocolate limes and things like that, which is totally irrelevant to leadership, but definitely relevant to sweet shops. But anyway, that all these different threads of conversation that we can pull on that really ultimately are helping you think a little bit differently about your leadership and what you choose to take forwards. So fascinating stuff. And then again, it came back to that clear communication piece, how we're talking to each other, how we're choosing to show up. And had a lovely, lovely conversation with somebody the other day about responding instead of reacting. So when something happens to you, or that you're part of, and something happens and it's challenging, just taking that moment to pause and thinking about how you respond. And I think that's really what Alex and I were thinking about as well, in terms of that communication piece. And then that other piece at the end, towards the end of the third episode, I forget which order all this came in. It's just things in my mind that I'm remembering as to getting beneath the surface of the people that you're working with. When was the last time somebody took the effort or made the effort to get to know you? Conversely, when was the last time you made real effort to get to know somebody? And it goes back to that piece I was talking about just now. In remote teams, that's even more difficult. So you have to work at that even harder. And being curious, staying curious for longer, and asking great questions and welcoming in great questions to you as well, allowing people to get to know you, being that little bit vulnerable. And I've said this before, it's not about airing your dirty laundry with everybody and letting them know every single thing about you. It's just about making sure that, people find you approachable, people feel they can talk to you, people feel that you're the kind of leader that they want to follow, if you think of that traditional sense of leadership, or B, want to work with, want to engage with, and feel that energy from. So there was so much in there with Alex, and it was fascinating stuff. And then we came to Emma Deshoe. Goodness me. She was just fantastic, and we had such fun in our 3 episodes, and you could really tell as we chatted through the fun and the enthusiasm and the energy that Emma brings to her own leadership. And we, it's going much more back to sort of traditional leadership in that sense. And, she really talked about so many things, including that moment of realization when you think, oh, what do I want to be when I grow up? And if you've listened to my episodes initially that started this podcast off, episodes 1 to 3, you'll get to hear my story and what I originally wanted to do when I grew up. But here I am as a leadership coach. And I never thought, well, it was never a thing in my head all those years ago. But what an amazing roller coaster I've been on, and not in terms of scary and, but great fun. Yeah, there's been some challenge along the way. Of course there has. And they're the moments that make us stronger. All of our strengths show up to pull us out of those challenging situations. And they're the real dips on the roller coaster that you just can't wait to get out of. But as you come up and you're climbing back up and you've got that peak again, it's an incredible feeling. And that learning that you carry with you means that the dip next time isn't quite so deep. And, you've learned a lot and you're able to pull yourself out faster. It's amazing what we are capable of as we learn over the years. And we talked about career opportunities presenting themselves to you and whether you choose to grab them or not. Do you have that desire, that drive to grab them, or that courage? Because that's often the case too, needing to find that courage inside us to go ahead and really go for something over here that feels perhaps a little bit out of our league, a little bit scary, but actually we've got everything within us that we need to be able to go for it and achieve it. So goodness, so many things. And we talked about change in organizations as you work with them. Goodness me, my last organization I was with for 12 and a half years, that changed massively over the years. And it always made me laugh because I always used to say that the organization structure that the organization had when I first joined was the one that they ended up with when I left, almost thereabouts. And it always made me laugh because they went through so many org structures to get back to that almost or very similar to what they had when I first started. So it just goes to show that change goes in cycles. And then we talked about learning and development. Emma's so passionate about learning and development. It's her bread and butter. It's what she loves. And, we talked about how different that can be in different organizations where they don't necessarily value as much as we'd like learning and development. But that piece around nobody's as invested in your learning and development and professional development as you are. Nobody cares about it as much as you. And if you don't care and put in the effort and the energy needed to push yourself and develop yourself more as you move forwards, then you're going to stay still. And that, I wouldn't want that for anybody, but it's got to come from you. That drive's got to come from you. And yes, there are systems and processes in place within organizations to help you to, some sort of performance development process, if you like. But that energy, that drive, that enthusiasm, that want, that desire to move forwards, better yourself, go for that promotion or go for that sidestep that's going to broaden your experience, whatever it might be, that's got to come from you. You've got to get that fire in your belly and feel it that you want to go for it. And then Emma talked about the fish philosophy. I'm not going to talk about that, but I am just going to make a nod to it and make sure you go back and listen to episodes 27, 28 and 29 that are Emma's 3 episodes, because there's just some fascinating stuff in there and how she's had the opportunity to bring in as much fun as possible into the teams that she's worked with previously. Honestly, by the end of those episodes, I just wanted to go and work for Emma, and maybe one day we'll get to work together, which will be fantastic, because she's just such a ball of energy, has so many fabulous ideas, and really is fantastic expert in the leadership and development space. And it was so wonderful to talk to her. And we kind of ended up on that piece around, where are you getting your energy from? You know, what gets you out of bed in the morning? We just touched on it. What's getting that fire in your belly in the morning? So, you know, the way that I'm helping my clients is to connect with those passions, connect with that purpose, connect with that reason to get out in the morning, and use all of that to make sure you've got the type of job for you that ensures you show up at work, you feel valued, your energy stays throughout the day, and that you just come home feeling happy and knowing that you've made a difference, you feel valued. The organisation and your boss are both sharing that fact that you're valued with you. And it makes a huge difference to being in a role where you're not that valued, or you don't feel valued, and you don't feel that you're making much of a difference. It can be life-changing. So look, there's a huge amount that I've just shared with you from the last 9 episodes with Siobhan, Alex and Emma. That's episodes 21 to 29 of Game of Leadership. If you haven't already, please go and have a listen. There's some fascinating stuff in there, golden nuggets, bits of advice, tips, things that will resonate with each and every one of you, will be totally different, and you'll all have different takeaways. But I urge you to take some time now and have some reflection and see what all of that means to you and the way that you choose to show up as a leader moving forwards. That's what this is all about. It's all about sharing our experiences to benefit the wider leaders in our field, if you like. So with that, I wish you a fantastic week ahead. Hope this has been helpful, and I hope you'll come back and listen again. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. I'm Paula Eddy-Wilcox, and it's been my pleasure to share what's resonated most for me over the past 9 episodes with our fantastic 3 guests. What now do you want to take away and help change or influence the way you lead moving forwards? There's been so much in there that I've shared today, and so much that we could dig into deeper. So if you want to know more, please do reach out and get in touch. I'd love to have a chat. But for now, I look forward to speaking with you next week on Game of Leadership, the podcast for curious leaders. Take care.